Click here to subscribe our channel. Do not forget to press the bell icon to get regular updates of free videos.
Within international we have to explain a Salter-Swan diagram, and this diagram is basically explaining the balance of internal and external balance and external balance. Internal balance require that y must be equal to full employment output, y की वैल्यू yf के बराबर होनी चाहिए, and external balance require that trade must be balanced, so x minus m must be equal to 0. So external balance is basically equality, or simply say net export equal to 0 होना है, और net export will be equal to 0 only when income will be equal to spending, and that spending is called as absorption. C plus I plus D is absorption also. So when you write y is equal to C plus I plus G plus x minus m, that x minus m becomes equal to y minus C I and G. So this is income minus absorption. So income minus absorption is trade balance. When you explain that Salter-Swan diagram, then on axis we are taking exchange rate on vertical axis and absorption on horizontal axis. Absorption here. So there are various combination of exchange rate and absorption. Various combination of exchange rate and absorption where we have internal balance and external balance. So when you talk about internal balance, then y must be equal to yf. So if you start with any particular combination, arbitrarily taking a certain exchange rate and taking a specific absorption, so that y is equal to yf. Remember, in order to be y equal to yf, c plus I plus g plus x minus m, तो ये टर्म एक्चुअल में c प्लस आई प्लस जी एब्जॉर्प्शन हो गया एंड प्लस नेट एक्सपोर्ट है ये. सो इफ यू टेक एनी पर्टिकुलर कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ एक्सचेंज रेट एंड एब्जॉर्प्शन वेयर y वाज इक्वल टू yf, इफ एब्जॉर्प्शन इंक्रीजेज देन, अगर a की वैल्यू बढ़ रही है तो क्या कम करना है, nx कम होना चाहिए. ओनली देन द सम विल बी इक्वल टू अ सर्टेन कांस्टेंट नंबर. सो इफ a इज इंक्रीजिंग, then nx must reduce, but nx will reduce when currency will appreciate, and currency appreciation means reduction of exchange rate. So internal balance is maintained along this schedule. Internal balance के लिए yy schedule लिख दीजिए, but ब्रैकेट में लिख देंगे at every point on that line y is equal to what, yf. So any point to the right of it, एनी पॉइंट टू द राइट ऑफ इट, y की वैल्यू और yf में क्या रिलेशन हो जाएगा, y विल बी ग्रेटर देन yf. पॉइंट्स टू द राइट ऑफ इट, बिकॉज सिंपल इंटरप्रिटेशन है, इफ यू आर ऑन दिस शेड्यूल y इक्वल टू yf, एज यू मूव टू द राइट at any given exchange rate, by moving to the right it means absorption increases. तो y की वैल्यू yf से ग्रेटर हो जाए, yf is a constant number. So any point to the right of it, in fact y will be greater than yf, you can say it over employment, and any point to the left of it y will be less than YF and only along this schedule Y is equal to YF. On the other hand, external balance require what? External balance require that income must be equal to absorption. Again, if you take a certain combination arbitrarily where X minus M, that is income, was equal to absorption. Now what will be the effect of increase in absorption? मतलब उसका स्लोप अगर आपको डिटरमाइन करना है तो कैसे करेंगे? एक पॉइंट मैंने आर्बिट्रेरी ले लिया. Now as absorption increases, what must also increase? Income. But income will increase when currency will depreciate, and depreciation means increase of exchange rate. So absorption and exchange rate both will increase. So this will be the line along which we have external balance. तो आप उसे ई शेड्यूल के फॉर्म में डिनोट कर लेते हैं. इनकम इंक्रीज होगा बिकॉज करेंसी डेप्रिसिएट होने पे नेट एक्सपोर्ट विल इंक्रीज. व्हेन यू से इनकम, इनकम मीन्स वाई एंड दैट वाई इज सी प्लस आई प्लस जी प्लस एक्स माइनस एम बी ए. सो व्हेन करेंसी विल डेप्रिसिएट then net export will increase and income will also increase. तो पॉइंट बेसिकली आप सॉल्टो-सॉन डायग्राम को इस फॉर्म में शो करते हैं. एनी पॉइंट टू द राइट ऑफ दिस external balance schedule will represent what? Points to the right of external balance. Points to the right of external balance there will be deficit, and points to the left of it there will be surplus. So I draw a fair diagram. उस फेयर डायग्राम में आप पहले इस मार्किंग को कर लेंगे. इंटरनल बैलेंस एज वेल एज एक्सटर्नल बैलेंस. रिमेंबर ये कंडीशन इंटरनल बैलेंस के लिए होल्ड करना है, ये कंडीशन एक्सटर्नल बैलेंस के लिए होल्ड करेगा. देयर विल बी 4 डिफरेंट जोन ऑफ डिसइक्विलिब्रियम, एंड देन इन दैट 4 जोन ऑफ डिसइक्विलिब्रियम यू हैव टू एक्सप्लेन हाउ एक्सपेंडिचर रिड्यूसिंग एंड स्विचिंग पॉलिसी विल वर्क टू अटेन साइमल्टेनियस बैलेंस ऑफ इंटरनल एज वेल एज एक्सटर्नल. तो अब ये फेयर डायग्राम में ड्रॉ कर रहा हूँ, ये साथ में ड्रॉ कर लेंगे. एब्जॉर्प्शन एंड एक्सचेंज रेट. सिंबल के फॉर्म में एक्सचेंज रेट ई है. व्हेन यू राइट एब्जॉर्प्शन इट इज ए और सी प्लस आई प्लस जी. It could be drawn in a straight line form or in a non-linear form also. Call it one as internal balance schedule and other as external balance schedule. Y is equal to YF, and there are now this entire diagram is divided into 4 different zone of disequilibrium. Zone 1, zone 2, 3 and 4. Points to the right of external balance there will be deficit. So in zone 2 and 3 there will be deficit, and to the left zone 1 and 4 we have surplus. Points to the right of internal balance, that is 1 and 2, right of internal balance, y will be greater than yf. So when y is greater than yf then over employment, and due to that there will be inflation. So y greater than yf will be causing inflation because output, full employment output से greater है. So to the right of it also there will be inflationary condition. ज़्यादा होगा. फुल एम्प्लॉयमेंट से ज़्यादा आउटपुट कैसे प्रोड्यूस करेंगे? बाय हायरिंग मोर वर्कर. देन यू हैव टू पे मोर वेजेस. दैट विल इंक्रीज लेबर कॉस्ट, विच विल इंक्रीज ओवरऑल कॉस्ट, and thereby it will lead to price. So whenever output is greater than full employment output, it causes price to rise and thereby it causes inflation in the economy. And if points are to the left of this internal, which is zone 3 and zone 4, y की वैल्यू yf से कम है, so in that way it is unemployment. इन्फ्लेशन को आप ओवर एम्प्लॉयमेंट भी कह सकते हो. अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट एंड अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट. This diagram is basically salt-o-swan diagram. Done. Read in first paragraph. Expenditure changing policy and expenditure changing policy. Expenditure changing policy and expenditure switching policy. Expenditure changing policy and expenditure switching policy can be used simultaneously. Can be used simultaneously to attain internal and external balance. To attain internal and external balance. For simplicity, we assume zero international capital flow. For simplicity, we assume zero international capital flow. Zero international capital flow. Zero international capital flow, so that balance of payment, so that BOP is equal to trade balance. So that BOP is equal to trade balance. In addition, we also assume that price remains constant. Price remains constant until aggregate demand. Price remains constant until aggregate demand begins to exceed. Until aggregate demand begins to exceed full employment level of output. Until aggregate demand begins to exceed full employment level of output. Next paragraph. In swan diagram, we take exchange rate on. In swan diagram, we take exchange rate on vertical axis, exchange rate on vertical axis, and domestic expenditure within bracket absorption on horizontal axis, on horizontal axis. Absorption includes domestic consumption and investment, domestic consumption and investment, as well as government expenditure, as well as government expenditure. That is C plus I plus G. Absorption is C plus I plus G. The curve E, the curve E shows various combination of exchange rate and absorption, various combination of exchange rate and absorption, that results in external balance, It is positively sloped, because a higher exchange rate, but when you say higher exchange rate, it means currency depreciation है या fixed exchange rate में devaluation है. A higher exchange rate improves trade balance, and therefore it must be matched by an increase in domestic absorption. It must be matched by an increase in domestic absorption, so that trade balance is in equilibrium. So when you are explaining this curve, you have to explain why it is positively sloped and what does points to the right of it indicate and to the left of indicate. Then why this internal balance is negative line, to the right of it what it shows and to the left of it what it shows. That means just don't write that internal and external balance is attained at the intersection of these two schedules. You have to explain why it is positive and why it is negative. Points to the right of this schedule, same paragraph, points to the right of this schedule represent a deficit, points to the right of this schedule represent deficit, and points to the left of this schedule represent surplus. Next paragraph. On the other hand, YY schedule YY schedule shows YY schedule shows various combination of YY schedule shows various combination of exchange rate and absorption that results in internal balance where output is equal to full employment level, output is equal to full employment level, मतलब Y equal to YF, and price stability is maintained, Y की वैल्यू फुल एम्प्लॉयमेंट के बराबर है, आर स्टेबल. It is negatively sloped because a lower exchange rate, lower means appreciation या revaluation, a lower exchange rate worsen trade balance, and therefore it must be matched by larger absorption, so that output is maintained at full employment level, Points to the right of this schedule shows that output is more than full employment level, so that there will be inflation. Output is more than full employment level, so that there will be inflation. On the other end, points to the left of YY curve or YY schedule, shows unemployment, points to the left of YY schedule shows unemployment because Y is less than YF. नेक्स्ट पैराग्राफ में स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम, अब वो स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट आप वैसे तो यू कैन टेक एनीवेयर, बट सपोज इफ आई स्टार्ट विथ अ पॉइंट ए and I position point A in zone 3. So in zone 3 we have deficit and unemployment. So you may begin with any point. अगर क्वेश्चन में कंडीशन स्पेसिफाइड होगा then you have to start with that point. But if I take a situation starting from point A, then I have to show how economy will move from point A to equilibrium of internal as well as external. So there right now there is a condition of deficit and there is a condition of unemployment. Next paragraph में starting from point A वहाँ मार्क कर लीजिएगा डायग्राम में. Starting from point A, starting from point A, which is in zone 3, which is in zone 3, starting from point A, which is in zone 3, characterizing unemployment and deficit, characterizing unemployment and deficit, characterizing unemployment and deficit. After comma, both exchange rate and domestic absorption, both exchange rate and domestic absorption must be increased to attain, must be increased to attain internal and external balance simultaneously, internal and external balance simultaneously, internal and external balance simultaneously. Full stop. To achieve simultaneous equilibrium, to achieve simultaneous equilibrium, expenditure switching policy, expenditure switching policy, expenditure switching policy में mainly devaluation है. That means you will change exchange rate. Both expenditure switching policy and expenditure changing policy must be used. Expenditure changing policy must be used. Full stop. By increasing exchange rate only, by increasing exchange rate only, by increasing exchange rate only through expenditure switching policy, by changing exchange rate only, by changing exchange rate only through expenditure switching policy, within bracket devaluation लिख दो. Expenditure switching policy, economy can move to point, economy can move to point A dash, economy can move to point A dash, A to A dash, because you are changing only what? Exchange rate. So change of exchange rate by devaluation will lead you to move from A point to A dash, but that point is on E schedule. So we have an external balance but not internal balance. Now in order to attain that internal balance, since there is unemployment, so you have to increase output as well. So you have to use other policy as well. Movement, economy can move to point A dash where there will be external balance, where there will be external balance. On the other hand, by using only expenditure changing policy, by using only expenditure changing policy, only expenditure changing policy, economy can have only internal balance, economy can have only internal balance, economy can have only internal balance. Therefore, both policies are required together. Both policies are required together. Both policies are required together in order to have internal and external balance simultaneously. In order to have internal and external balance simultaneously. In order to have internal and external balance simultaneously. Must differentiate between two type of policy. When I say expenditure switching, when you say expenditure has been switched, तो expenditure switching policy में क्या change करना है? Expenditure switching policy is mainly dealing with devaluation. So in the case of expenditure switching, you are changing exchange rate. When I say expenditure changing policy, expenditure reducing policy, then you are basically reducing the spending through monetary policy and fiscal policy. So when you change exchange rate, the movement will be vertical. When you change absorption, then it will be horizontal. So you require basically both set of policy to move from point A to point of equilibrium. Next paragraph. If economy is characterized by BOP deficit and inflation, if economy is characterized by BOP deficit and inflation, BOP deficit and inflation, but deficit and inflation ये जोन 2 हो गया. Then to achieve external balance, एक्सटर्नल बैलेंस के लिए क्या रिक्वायर्ड होगा अगर जोन 2 में? तो एक्सटर्नल बैलेंस के लिए यू हैव टू मूव हियर, सो increase but devaluation required. If economy is characterized by BOP deficit and inflation, then to achieve external balance, devaluation is required. Devaluation is required as a part of expenditure switching policy. As a part of expenditure switching policy. And monetary and fiscal contraction is required. Monetary and fiscal contraction is required. Monetary and fiscal contraction is required as a part of expenditure changing policy. As a part of expenditure changing policy. So changing policy. So when both policies will be used together, then economy can attain internal and external balance together. Economy can attain internal and external balance together. Internal and external balance together. So just remember, when you write external balance along that line, income is equal to absorption, so that net export is a 0, and along this internal balance, y must be equal to the full employment level, and these are the schedule representing various combination of exchange rate and absorption. So when you take exchange rate and absorption on the vertical and horizontal axis, then your external balance is positive line and internal balance is negative slope line, and these are the 4 zone of district lamp. That description is basically for salt and swan diagram. Now if in question a specific zone has been mentioned, then you have to explain your answer according to that. But broadly remember, when you say expenditure switching policy, you are changing exchange rate. When you say expenditure changing policy, you are changing absorption. So on one axis it is exchange rate that can be manipulated by expenditure switching policy. On the other hand, it is